Hello and welcome back to Continental Club, where we discuss the hottest topics in European football. I am back. Thank you very much for my Cubs covering me as host last week, and for Chris for stepping in as an excellent guest. But it's great to be back.
No thanks for you, Henry, for just being here.
Thank you, Henry, as well. We didn't appreciate that booing, but it is great to be back as a trio. Henry,
that was for Chris, not you.
how are you?
You know what? Great moods. We've had some historic days on Continental Club recently, and today is another one. Big transfer market action. Liz Truss out. Who's coming in?
Yeah.
Who knows? But yeah, no, I'm very well, thank you. Hopefully Fulham will have 3 points by the time this goes live with a game against Aston Villa. Maybe Gerrard will be gone. Who knows? More breaking news perhaps. But yeah, I'm very well. Dukes, how are you? How's New York?
Good, thank you. Good. Yeah, excellent city. It's a lot of fun to go to. I've been before, so I was doing more of the sort of authentic New York experience. I was staying with my brother who lives there. We went to a New York Knicks game versus the Washington Wizards. That's about as good as my accent gets. And the Knicks were very impressive, actually. And then we did a bit of cycling, ate some nice food. Can't complain. A great trip. But yeah, very lucky to be able to stay with my brother because it is expensive out there. Crazy expensive. But no, it was great. But yeah, my bank account was glad it was only a 3 or 4 day trip. My Cubs, how are you? I saw you were venting on the Football Daily group about Cristiano Ronaldo's antics last night.
Oh yeah, just
being stroppy, wasn't it?
Yeah, just embarrassing, isn't it, really? Embarrassing, what a fall from grace. Yeah, there's not really much to say about it, really. Just clearly can't, doesn't like seeing a team do well without him in it. But yeah, I don't know. Unless there are other reasons, but it doesn't seem like there are actual personal reasons for it.
There is no obligation at all to play him. If you're winning 2-0, if Rashford looks back to his best, which is great and more important for the club, there is no obligation to bring him on whatsoever. It is pathetic.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Very, very self-interested. I think you made the point a couple of months ago in the Cubs that it's quite clear why he's never been captain of his club side, because he's just very petulant and pretty self-interested as well. But anyway, we're going to be talking more things European side. We're going to leave the Premier League alone, and we're going to talk about players that your club can't survive without. That sounds like a double negative. Basically, they're really, really important to their clubs. I put a tweet out and we're responding to your suggestions. And we're going to start with @Harold Fake's suggestion of Andre, Franck, Zambo, Anguissa. And Henry, it makes sense to go to the Fulham fan because you've seen this guy in action on a regular occasion and he's now tearing it up at Napoli.
Yeah, you know what? I'm not surprised at all. I think we were all quite impressed with him when he was playing for Fulham. The things he was doing then. Obviously, he was bought originally. It took him a while to get going. When loaned out again, came back, and he was a remarkable player for Fulham. But he's doing a completely different job for Napoli. We just included him in sort of one of the bargain buys of the summer because I really think for £15 million, which they paid for him, he's just been a quality addition. Is he? Because this comes in from @Harold Fake. Is he a player they can't survive without? I think that would be a disservice to the rest of that Napoli midfield because we've got an Explain coming out on Napoli very soon. And I was looking at them. A lot of the players play equally important roles. Like Zielinski's the guy that releases the final third because they're huge possession numbers. Only Fiorentina have the ball more than them. But, I mean, Napoli's passing is so much more effective. If you just look, because they also create the most shots in the division. So they're just manipulating the space absolutely everywhere. And Anguissa is very much part of that, but so is Lobotka as well. Lobotka, his passing accuracy this season has been 94%, which is monstrous. Anguissa's at 89%. And they both play huge passes under pressure as well. They're the guys that are kind of sucking the opposition in, then knocking the ball into space, and that's when they're releasing the wingers, Politano, Kvaratskhelia, etc., to really sort of do the damage. Even Rui and Di Lorenzo, the fullbacks, have been monumental to their efforts so far this season. So I think it's slightly unfair to say Anguissa, they can't live without him. But if we just look at some of his numbers, you're right. What a player this season, what a season he's having. 3 goals, 5 assists in 13 League and Champions League games. They're one of only 4 unbeaten sides in Europe. Do you know their ones so far?
Union, is it?
No.
Bayern? No.
PSG, Real Madrid and Atalanta, which is
like... Of course, Atalanta, yeah.
Atalanta, still unbeaten.
Yeah,
you'd love to see it. But yeah, it's... I sort of touched on some of his other numbers too. He leads the side for pressures as well, so he's regaining the ball, then starting the tempo of play. So yeah, he looks excellent. Like I said, he's doing a different job a little bit to what he was doing at Fulham. He scored that brace this season too. I love Anguissa, and I think he's a quality player. But there are other guys that are equally as important to the side. Kvaratskhelia, you can't take away what he's done so far. It's unbelievable, his goals and assists this season to have come from nowhere. And I really just think it's Spalletti who's the master to all of this, because he's the one that's breathed confidence into all these players to go out and express themselves. But also you've got Ndombele coming off the bench and Elmas. You need to have players that can slot into that system too in order to sustain this going forward, because the one thing you maybe could say about Napoli's side is certainly defence. They don't have loads of bodies that can come in and fill in at fullback, that can fill in at centre half if a few holes appear. So it is a bit of a team effort. But yeah, Anguissa, what a great player. What a season he's having, and long may it continue. I mean, yeah, massive going forwards, defending, love him to bits.
Yeah, for sure. I think you're totally right about the depth in forward areas in midfield, for sure. I mean, Raspadori, Simeone can come in, and they've really held their own with Osimhen missing some games as well.
Even Lozano's scoring goals again and looks reborn, and that's just such a plus to this side. Osimhen's coming back and he looks... Yeah. His appetite for scoring goals is crazy. So I'm like smashing the ground every time he's offside or having a goal save. They all want to contribute to this effort. It's unreal. Like you need a team to win a league, and it's such a team performance from Napoli at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one of the biggest injuries that they could potentially have is probably Kim Min-jae at the back. I think he's been excellent at the start of this year. And also fair play to Eric's Meret, or Meret, I never really know how to pronounce it. I think it's Meret. Because, they sold Ospina in the summer. We're looking to bring in Keylor Navas, and he's actually started the start of this season, and he's been great up until the weekend when he made a really basic error. It was a bit like sort of Nick Pope's against Germany for England the other day. Really quite poor from him, but yeah, he's had a solid start to the year as well. But we're going to talk about Napoli in big match predictions. So let's move on, Macubs, to another team in Italy, or another team star player, Lorenzo Pellegrini at Mika Mandan, even suggestion. What a great name. And Lorenzo Pellegrini, what a great player.
Yeah, fantastic player. And I think that, in the context of Dybala being injured, he's not going to be back until 2023, is it? Or at least until after the World Cup. I think he becomes a lot more important. I think if Dybala wasn't injured, it wouldn't be so much the case, just because he's had such a great start to life at Roma, hasn't he? But 5 goals, 2 assists in 8 games. The rest of the forward line hadn't been quite as prolific. Tammy Abraham's obviously dropped off in terms of his productivity, which is a shame to see, given that last season his expected goals were fantastic as well. So it did feel like he was going to really push on this term, get that kind of hit the 20 plus goal mark. But Pellegrini, he's just been so important to them for what seems like forever now, doesn't it? It's not so long ago that this Roma team were genuinely pretty bad, and even during that time, Pellegrini just always looked very, very alive. Obviously, super creative, has an eye for goal as well, decent strike on him. Just great movement, good dribbler. He just does have everything. One of the most complete players in Italy, I think. And so it feels like a just reward now for him to be playing alongside such good players in that Roma forward line, and to have the team structure is just a lot better, isn't it, under Mourinho? Having said that, there have still just been worrying moments for Roma. Obviously, they've not been great in Europe. They're just prone to a stinker, and I feel like that will ultimately that might cost them their season, when you consider that there are other teams in Serie A who are yet to really come alive. Inter are inevitably going to go on a run at some point this term, and I think that will put Roma's Champions League hopes under threat. But Pellegrini, I think, is quite the opposite. I think he's been consistently brilliant for a long, long time. He's going to have to step up his game even more, I think, in the absence of Dybala, because we get to see Belotti really get on the score sheet. Obviously, like I said, Tammy's underperforming XG a lot, and Zaniolo, can be brilliant, but also is often taken out of the side as well. So I think Pellegrini is very much the talisman in that side.
Yeah, definitely.
Can I say, I think Chris Smalling does deserve, everyone is saying he's been the most consistent player for Roma since he joined.
Great Italian as well.
Yeah, what he offers at centre half. I think if you took him out the side, the defence looks very just devoid of experience all of a sudden. But what Macub said is exactly right, especially now Dybala's gone. If you saw against Sampdoria, there's so many times they could have squared the ball sideways, and it was all a little bit selfish, really. Only Abraham is the one kind of giving everything for the rest of the team up front. The rest of the there are definitely concerns about Roma when it comes to. I think they can still make top four, but I think the title challenges they're quickly being shown up to not be maybe the most complete team in Serie A.
Yeah, definitely. But I think Pellegrini definitely deserves his spot on this list. I think in the post-Totti era, you're probably looking at Dzeko and Pellegrini as their sort of two best players of that period. So yeah, a worthy mention from Mika Mandan. I always want to say Mika Maka there. Right, this is another worthy mention, in my opinion, from new age purist of Iago Aspas. He's now 35 years old. What a performer for so long. He's recently passed 550 club games. He's also been capped 18 times by Spain. He got 6 goals in that time, which is a pretty solid record considering, you know, the talent that he's had in front of him. He's probably had quite a few appearances of those off the bench as well. Obviously, had that disappointing one season, I think it was, at Liverpool, and then had a 1 season on loan at Sevilla. But since joining Celta Vigo, I think he's scored at least 14 league goals every year for 7 years. And he scored over 20 twice. And Celta Vigo have never been a particularly good side in that time. They've often been in mid-table or in lower mid-table, fighting relegation. And he's just been incredibly consistent. Like, this is a guy who's now 26th on La Liga's all-time top goal scorer list. He's only 15 goals behind Ferenc Puskás, which is mental. I know Puskás did it in far fewer appearances, and in a different time. It's almost silly to compare eras, but that is
better team as well, though.
Yeah, much better side. I mean, that is remarkable, really, that Aspas is on that sort of list. This season, he's got 6 goals in 10 games. Only one other player has scored more than 1, and they're in 13th. They're 3 points clear of relegation. They are where they always are, which is just above the relegation zone. So you always feel like if Aspas gets injured, then things could get quite nasty for Celta Vigo. And they lost Brais Mendes this summer as well. He went to Real Sociedad, which was a big loss as well. He's performing pretty well at Real Sociedad, so the pressure's even more on Aspas. So I think out of this entire list, he probably fits it more than most. And also, one final thing, also a massive big game player for Celta Vigo. Get a load of these stats. So he's got 12 goals in 17 appearances versus Sevilla, his former side. Loves it against them. 10 in 18 versus Barcelona, and 5 goals and 5 assists in 22 versus Real Madrid, which is pretty impressive stuff as well. So fair play to Iago Aspas. Henry, let's briefly talk about Union Berlin and Sheraldo Becker. This came in from At the Bridge Pod, and there's a few different players at Union Berlin who deserve a mention, but Sheraldo Becker's been brilliant.
Yeah, absolutely. We were talking Yannick Haberer last week. We mentioned him, sort of unassuming midfielder who joined from Freiburg, who's leading their kind of chance creation from midfield. He's been excellent. And then, yeah, got it here, I was going to say anyway, Frederic Renaud, the goalkeeper, he's been quality. I tipped him to maybe beat Kasper Schmeichel to the Danish #1 at the World Cup, but that won't be happening. But yes, Sheraldo Becker, wow. I mean, Union are a weird team. Let's have it straight here. They are 12th for shots per game, 6th for shots against, 18th for possession. And, you know, I think their XG is one of the worst in Germany. It's unbelievable. The worst in Germany, there you go. And yet they're top of the Bundesliga and are good value for it in many regards. And I think when you hear that, Becker is without doubt the most important player. He stepped out. He's been good for a number of seasons, but now he's gone to Nottingham Forest. He's had to step up his game. And yeah, he had 7 goals in 49 Bundesligas prior to this match. And since Iwoni's gone, he's got 6 goals and 3 assists in 10 league games. So that kind of shows you the void that he's filling. He's absolutely rapid. I was saying last week, one of the quickest players in the Bundesliga, and without him, they would be in serious trouble. I think he's 27 as well, so he's entering the peak years. Really like Sheraldo Becker. I think he's a great player, and if Union can keep up this run, because they've taken points against a lot of the big teams so far. It's not as if they've got all the big teams to come. I think they've got an unbelievable record against the kind of conventional guys they would be going up against in a title challenge. But so yeah, it's all about these games against Bochum, etc., where they're really going to have to get over the line at the moment. And Becker's a massive part of that. Urs Fischer too. What a manager! What a job he's done at that club.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, thinking of pace, this is a bit of a side note, but did you see last night? I don't know whether you guys saw the stat that Darwin Núñez was the quickest recorded player in the Premier League since the start of last season.
Yeah, I heard about this. Yeah.
Mental.
Yeah.
I knew he was quite quick, but guess who was fastest prior to that? Since the start of last season.
Is it like
it's someone quite random?
Is it
not Walker?
Walker Peters or
Antonio Rudiger was the fastest in the Premier League since the start of last season. Anyway, little side note, Sheraldo Becker also very quick. McCubs, we've got a few different suggestions down here. Where do you want to go next?
I guess we could give a shout out to Ademola Lookman. I think Atalanta have been great this season, haven't they? Obviously unbeaten. Defensively they look great. We were talking about Scalvini last week. He's obviously not been, a regular starter for them, but in terms of the way that defence has evolved, he looks really exciting. Obviously, Teun Koopmeiners has been great ever since he came in last year as well, hasn't he? They've been fantastic. And Koopmeiners, like Lookman, is their joint top scorer on 4. We've seen Zapata and Luis Muriel kind of decline a bit over the last 12 months, especially Zapata, who. I feel like he was averaging basically a goal a game in the first half of last season and then dropped off so much, didn't he? He struggled with injuries as well, hasn't he? But Lookman's been, I think, one of the signings of the summer in many respects. Obviously joined from Leipzig after those loan spells with Fulham and Leicester. He's got 3 in his last 3 games. His XG looks great. I think he's averaging around 0.85 expected goals and assists per 90. And it's just great to see, him finally, look at home somewhere in terms of, being in a side which really suits his skill set. I think there were obviously flashes of that when he was on loan in the Premier League. Leipzig, he didn't really get much of a chance when he went back there after his initial loan, did he? But yes, it's just great to see him, working under one of the best managers on the continent. In a great attacking system. Obviously, they're not quite. They don't play quite as they used to. But just playing in a fully functional side, which is designed for him to do well. It's great.
He's done really well. Also massive credit to him. He's picked for an English player. Fair play to him. We are known for being quite boring and quite conservative in terms of our career choices as footballers. Not we, but the players are. Anyway, he's picked Leipzig out and then gone to Atalanta. Fair play to him. That's a really intriguing career path. I'm actually surprised Leicester didn't try and sign him permanently. I know they had their financial issues.
They did. Rodgers really wanted him. That was one of his big gripes in the summer was they didn't even have enough money to sign Lookman, and he really wanted to get over the line.
That makes sense. Okay, I take it back. My criticism of it wasn't really directed at Rodgers, more at Leicester if they did try to sign him. But Lookman completely taking advantage of that situation and going to Atalanta and instantly shining. His finish last weekend was absolutely spectacular. And I think Atalanta have got this nice balance at the moment. They're probably slightly less entertaining going forward, but I think they're slightly more solid at the back, and it's just a nice mix that's got them in this title mix at the early stages of this season. Sticking in Serie A, Deathstroke 33 says Dusan Vlahovic. I only briefly want to talk about Dusan Vlahovic because I feel like we talk about Juventus way too much for such a boring side, to be totally honest. But he is doing really well, I think, Vlahovic, to be honest. 7 goals, 1 assist in 13 League and Champions League games. He's averaging over double the amount of shots as anyone else. He's carrying that side's attack, and actually, I just feel, as much as you can ever really feel sorry for a player that's gone for £70 million and is a multi-millionaire, I do feel a little bit sorry for him in that he picked out Juventus in January, or they picked him in January, and he chose to go there. If he'd waited to the summer, I think he could have got such a better move.
I don't feel sorry for him at all.
Really?
No.
I just put it on Twitter earlier, and maybe I was being a bit soppy, but the fact Liverpool, Arsenal, Barcelona, PSG were thinking about signing a striker like Vlahovic, if he'd waited 6 months, he wouldn't be at such a dead team.
He could have had a historic season with Fiorentina. He could have done something pretty special. But
the Fiorentina fans will not be in agreement with me.
I think Cuadrado continues to be such a light for Juventus when he shouldn't be, really. So he's been unreal.
No, he has done well. But Vlahovic, let me know in the comments. Do you guys feel a bit sorry for him? I do. Anyway, quickly, let's talk about Randal Kolo Muani coming in from Daniel Krob. Now, Eintracht had a really interesting summer. I thought things were going to slightly fall apart because of Kostic's exit, but Kolo Muani has come in from Nantes, had a really good year there last year, 12 goals and 4 assists in 36 league games. They won the Coupe de France, or Coupe de la Ligue? Coupe de France. And Nantes have really fallen apart in his absence, and he's hit the ground running in the Bundesliga as well. 3 goals and 5 assists in 9 Bundesliga games. And they're playing really well at the moment, Eintracht Frankfurt, after a difficult year last year in the Bundesliga at least. Daichi Kamada's taking a step forward. Jesper Lindstrom looks like he's really promising all of a sudden. And you can see why Arsenal and some other sides are linked to him at the moment. So fair play to Kolo Muani, and long may it continue. Henry, who do you want to wrap up with? We've got a few other suggestions.
I like Mike Maignan from Fabian Grillo. I think we were pretty scathing of Tatarusanu the other day, but I don't think it's necessarily his fault. It's the emphasis on AC Milan to go out and find a decent reserve keeper, but I think at the moment you can't really take away what Rafael Leao and Giroud offer up front. For them, we've discussed that a lot recently. And the Haas cream, good old Haas. He's our colleague. He said Aurelien Tchouameni. Once again, I don't know if he's. I think Alaba still at centre half. I still think
Kroos,
Courtois is maybe. I actually thought what Courtois said about the Ballon d'Or the other day was really true. He said as a goalkeeper, he's
It pains me to say it because he is really annoying.
Yeah, it's quite annoying, but it's true. Like, he won everything really last season. He still came 7th in the Bundesliga with Mane in the Ballon d'Or.
That would be amazing.
Still above Vinicius, wasn't he?
I think I'm pleased for Tchouameni. Obviously, Casemiro leaving has given him an opportunity to really step in and integrate himself in the starting 11 probably quicker than they even imagines, and he's performing admirably. So, but yeah, he's not the most important player in that side, as you guys have pointed out.
Yeah, fair enough. McCubs, the final word. We've got Jude Bellingham here, down here. Pedri, we've talked about them a lot, but Florian Wirtz as well in absence. It feels like Bayer Leverkusen have really suffered.
Yeah, to an extent. I don't know whether it's about Wirtz or I'm not really sure what's gone wrong at Leverkusen, to be honest. They're just wildly inconsistent. I don't know whether it's about him, because I just think they have so much attacking talent there anyway. But yeah, I think but Bellingham for sure. Like, I think if you take him out of that Dortmund midfield, they suddenly look incredibly average, don't they? Like, there just isn't anyone who can kind of do what he does, or even cut. Even if you had two midfielders doing that job, I just think he really makes Dortmund tick, doesn't he? Pedri as well. We saw it last year when he got injured for Barcelona. They just fell apart. I think now they're in a better position. And I feel like, Ansu Fati, I think, is inevitably, if he stays fit, is going to become that talismanic figure again, hopefully at some point this year. I think that midfield in general just looks better. But yeah, I think still if he gets injured, then that's going to be a big risk for their kind of their hopes this season. I'm trying to think of who else, like, spoken about Milan.
I was thinking Jonathan David at Lille. He's back to his best.
He's top scorer in Ligue 1, isn't he? Still,
which is great for him. Probably great for Lille in terms of getting some money back. And without him, they'd probably be really struggling. Yeah.
Also, Jonathan Klaus at Marseille has had an excellent start to the year, and I feel like, one of the signings of the summer too. I think they're kind of transition away from Sampaoli, which has been relatively seamless actually. I think they've been pretty good this year. There's a lot down to him. He's been fantastic.
Yeah, it's classic that they were trying to get Igor Tudor sacked after 2 games, and then look at where they're doing now. Marseille, much better. Anyway, guys, let us know about your club. Which is the player from your club that you cannot live without? Let us know in the comments down below, and let's move on to our big match predictions. So just to fill you in on what happened last week, obviously I was away. Chris did step in, so they did a sort of practice round, as it were, for the real thing. But to fill you in on where the scoreboard is in terms of the real list, I'm on 22, Henry's on 14, and McCubbs is on 8. Both of them had excellent weeks the week before last, actually. I didn't get any points, so is the tide turning? We shall see. In terms of last week, I'll quickly round up what happened last week. El Clasico, Chris backed Barcelona. Ooh. Henry went 1-1, McCubbs went 3-2 Madrid. Very close. It finished 3-1. 1 point to McCubbs. Union Berlin versus Dortmund. McCubbs went with a draw. Chris backed Dortmund. Henry went 2-1 to Union Berlin. Very close again. 2-0 to Union Berlin. 1 point to Henry on that. And then Le Classique, both Henry and McCubbs backed Marseille.
Wow. Yep. Why not?
Were you guys a bit pissed at that stage?
No, just, Mbappe gates. that happened, didn't it? Not sure.
Last week?
We just fancied Marseille, didn't we?
I remember us saying it didn't mean it was a free hit.
Love it. Chris went 3-0 to PSG. Ended up 1-0 to PSG after that Neymar goal. So that was 1 point to Chris. So last week finished 1 point to each of you. Kind of irrelevant, but anyway, we're back on the real stuff this week, guys. And the game we're kicking off with is Hoffenheim versus Bayern Munich, Saturday 5:30 p.m. Fourth, surprisingly, Hoffenheim slightly gone under the radar this year. I sort of didn't realise they were fourth until today. Versus second, there's only 2 points between them. McCubbs, let's kind of talk Hoffenheim briefly. Yeah. New manager at the helm. They're doing all right.
Yeah, Andre Breitenreiter. I can't, say that I know an awful lot about him.
Nailed the pronunciation.
But that's my German GCSE kicking in. But he used to manage Schalke, Hanover, Zurich. He's got a good experience in that sense, and Hoffenheim have been, they've had a really positive start to the season. They've won 7 of their opening 12 games. They've only lost 3 times against fairly strong opposition in Gladbach, Dortmund, and Werder Bremen, who I think have have really impressed at points this year on their return to the bully. So yeah, it's been positive, especially considering they sold a player as important to them as David Raum in the summer. I know he was only there for 1 year, but a big source of creativity for them. And the goals are still being spread around. Munas Dabor scored a hat-trick against Schalke in the Pokal on Tuesday night. He's got, I think, 4 goals from 3 starts in the league as well. Kramaric, has always been a pretty prolific player for them, and they've got the 3rd best defence in the Division 2. In small part thanks to the form of Ozan Kabak, who's having a real career revival, if you can call it that. He's still very, very young, but obviously, 2-3 years ago he was being talked about as the next big thing in terms of centre backs in Europe, and obviously has had a difficult couple of years since, but he looks great this season. Hoffenheim look very decent. I feel like this is a team that will probably finish in the top 8. I imagine they'll probably drop down, get in the league over the next few months and come back up again. I feel like that they are just one of those pretty kind of solid top half sides, but a team that since the Nagelsmann days haven't really convincingly threatened in terms of Champions League qualification. But maybe this could be their year.
I like it. Thinking of Kabak and thinking of young defenders who have sort of re-established themselves as up and coming again. Konstantinos Mavropanos at Stuttgart. I don't watch Stuttgart week in, week out, obviously, but whenever I check in with him,
it's been amazing.
He's doing mad stuff at Stuttgart. It's really, really impressive. The Greek god in Stuttgart.
Yeah, I think they got him for like 3 million on a permanent this year as well. It's unbelievable.
Classic Arsenal, underselling their players. Anyway, Henry, disappointing September for Bayern Munich, but October, a lot of goals flying in.
Yeah, I mean, crazy, isn't it? I mean, really going for it again. There's such a seesaw of a season for Bayern. Obviously,
it's kind of exhausting.
Started August just demolishing everything they saw. Seemed to have lost a step, and now back to it once more. I mean, 10 goals scored in their last 2 games against Freiburg, then Augsburg in the Cup. Bear in mind, Augsburg beat them, I think, earlier this season as well. So, Choupo-Moting, I was singing his praises recently. He's playing so well.
Keep a good man down.
He seems to be like the go-to sort of step-in number 9 for elite clubs across Europe at the moment. But yeah, I will say Leroy Sané is injured in this game, and that is going to be a really big loss. He's got 9 goals and 3 assists in 14 League and Champions League games this season, 4.7 shots a game. It's nuts, kind of the rate that he's been going at. Obviously, Gnabry, Musiala, etc. have all been chipping in. Mane getting goals, not as many as some would think, but he's still there and thereabouts. So this is a really interesting game because Bayern have dropped points in 5 of their 10 Bundesliga games this season. Hoffenheim, as you say, the fact they've got such a good defence, I think is going to really work in their favour, because that tends to be a problem with German sides at the moment. It seems sort of blazing at both ends. So I'm struggling with this one. I think Bayern will still get a win, but I think it's going to be a 2-1. I'm going to go for a 2-1 win to Bayern, but I wouldn't be shocked if Hoffenheim got a draw out of this based on sort of the unpredictability of Bayern Munich at the moment.
Yeah, for sure. That's a good point. They are very unpredictable. Macabs, what's your prediction then?
I was thinking about 2-1, but I might go for a 1-1 draw. I love it. I'll take that from you.
You are our quirkiest predictor. It always entertains me. I like it. It does, but it's going to come off one day. I mean, you nearly got a 5-pointer with the Real Madrid El Clasico. If it, a 4-pointer even, if it had counted. It is difficult because Bayern haven't been great this year, as Henry says. I mean, they're currently on track for 64 points, which would be their lowest since 2006-07 when they finished 4th. And their last 3 years, they've got at least 77. So, not being great. And Leroy Sané, who has been probably their second best attacker after Musiala this year, is injured as well. I think he's been spectacular this year. Like his range of finishing, he looks much more comfortable coming into central areas than he did previously when he first joined Bayern. So, that is a big loss. Having said that, I just think Bayern have had a very good week, and I back them to continue that as well. I think this might be 3-0 Bayern. I actually can't see a shock in this one, but yeah, let me know what you guys think. Right, let's move on to Roma versus Napoli, Sunday, 7:45 p.m, first versus fourth, 4 points between them. Macabs, we talked a fair bit about Napoli, and actually mentioned Pellegrini and Roma, of course. What do you see happening in this game? Because Napoli have kind of passed every test so far, and Roma probably a bit under strength at the moment.
Well, yeah, like I said, obviously Dybala's out, Celik's out till January, Wijnaldum's obviously out long term as well. So, Yeah, they're under strength. I slightly see Roma struggling a bit with the energy of Napoli. I just think Napoli, in terms of, I know Roma rank very well in terms of chance creation and stuff in Italy, and their defence also ranks very well. But I just think when you've got Kvaratskhelia, sorry, I've absolutely butchered his pronunciation there, but when you've got him, I don't know, he's just a maverick, and I think it's hard to prepare to play against a player like that.
I agree.
I really think and everything Napoli do goes through him, and Osimhen's back, and he's just I think, I imagine Chris Smalling is just going to be instructed to stay on Osimhen, but in that attack you can't man mark everyone. There's only so many players you can take out of the game, and I feel like this will be, I think Napoli are going to maybe take them to the cleaners here.
Score.
I don't know about a score. I say take them to the cleaners. It's not going to be some crazy scoreline, but I do think it will be comfortable. I think I'm going to say 3-1 to Napoli.
3-1.
Yeah. Away from home, it will be tough for them, but Napoli are just impressive, aren't they?
So impressive. Unbeaten through to the second round through to the last 16 of the Champions League already. I think it's 12. They've won 12 of 14 games this year. Crazy stuff. Any hope for your Giallorossi boys, Henry?
If this was in Napoli at the Diego Maradona, which is absolutely bouncing at the moment, some amazing shots of it in recent weeks, especially after that Ajax game. If it was there, I would back Napoli 100%. I can just see a Mourinho masterclass in boring football incoming. Do you know, I can just see him setting up the team.
That's what you love, mate.
Yeah, I can see them setting up to do not very much.
I'm trying to think I don't know what their games were like last year. I can't really remember them.
Either.
I mean, they're on a pretty good run of wins at the moment, all by 1-goal margins the last 3, and there is a sort of an art to that in itself, isn't there? And but I'm going to go for 1-1 here, just because the thing is, Napoli do concede goals. I think they've conceded 9 so far in the league. At this point last year, they'd only conceded 3. So I mean, it's they've sort of sacrificed a bit of their defensive now in order to sort of supply that attack going forward. But I think I imagine Napoli would win, but I can just see Roma sort of shutting up shop and going for a 1-1 draw on this occasion.
Fair enough. Yeah, they have been better in the bigger games in the league this year, Roma, I'd say. I mean, they beat Inter, and they were quite unlucky to lose to Atalanta, I seem to remember. I think it was 1-0 to Atalanta, and they played really well in that game. Having said that, with the form of Napoli's key men, it's really difficult to look past them at the moment. I'm going to go, so you went 1-1, you went 3-1.
Yeah.
I might go 2-1 to Napoli. And I will say that after these, so their next 3 games are Roma, Sassuolo, Atalanta, Napoli's. And I think after that, we've really got to start saying, sort of considering them as pretty strong favourites at the moment, if they're still unbeaten or have put together some good results in that time. So a very, very exciting time to be a Napoli fan. Let's move on to our final game. It's Barcelona versus Athletic Club, Sunday 8 p.m. It's 2nd versus 6th. There are 4 points between them, although we will clarify and say that Barcelona are playing against Villarreal tonight as we film this on Thursday. Don't know how that went. Obviously, Real Madrid won 2-0, was it, last night as well? Sort of continuing their magnificent form. Barcelona McCubs, not been a great October for them, not been a great last couple of weeks specifically.
No, it's been pretty terrible, hasn't it? Obviously, set to go out of the Champions League, lose El Clasico, Real Madrid. I think it was interesting, the kind of analysis, or the kind of surface level analysis of kind of Barcelona, Real Madrid. A lot of people kind of being like, this is a Barcelona team that looks more exciting stylistically, but is still kind of finding their way, whereas Real Madrid kind of they just know how to beat teams, which is pretty true. I think you could argue, especially last season, that Real Madrid were quite fortunate in many respects. That run to the Champions League final was freak. It will probably, we probably won't ever see a run like that to a Champions League final ever again.
It was great.
It was incredibly
super
entertaining.
Dramatic,
So dramatic. Just almost unreal. Felt scripted, but
conspiracy.
Yeah, but I think it was true. I think this is a Barcelona team that's still working itself out in many respects, even though they've obviously had a lot of investment. The defence has been threadbare due to injuries, although I think Koundé, this is probably going to be his second time starting in a row now, which is positive for them. But there were still kind of positives about that Real Madrid game. I think they looked way better when Gavi and Ansu Fati came on. I know they spent a lot of money on Rafinha in the summer, but I do think it might be time to give him a little bit of a rest and bring Ansu Fati into the left-hand side, move Ousmane Dembele back to the right, where he was so dangerous last year. So yeah, it's obviously been a difficult time for Barca, but like they are very much still in the title race for the league, and I expect them to probably win fairly comfortably against Athletic Club. I know Athletic Club have been good under Valverde, but you know, I just feel like Barca have generally just overpowered the kind of smaller clubs they faced in the league this season.
Nice.
Yeah.
Score?
I'll go 2-0 to Barca.
Fair enough. Yeah, I'm kind of with you on the sort of. Well, it'll be interesting because if Barcelona lose to Villarreal tonight, then it is really all hell breaking loose there.
Yeah.
But
I mean,
that result is quite crucial. But if they win tonight, then you know it's. I think people have exaggerated in the last 10 days how bad Barcelona were in those games, and I think people were exaggerating at the start of the season how good they were in those games as well. They're probably somewhere in the middle. And I don't think their Champions League campaign has been nearly as embarrassing as last time as well. Like they were really excellent against Bayern Munich for 45 minutes. I know I keep on banging on about that performance, but they really were very good. And then should have beaten Inter in the first game if the referee had spotted that Denzel Dumfries handball as well. So I just don't think it's as bad. Yes, they were outplayed by Real Madrid, or at least Real Madrid were more clinical with the chances they created, obviously. But I just don't think it's as bad. Anyway, Henry, Athletic Club will be a bit of a test because they are performing pretty well. Yeah, more entertaining than Athletic sides of years gone by.
Absolutely, we touched a little bit on it last week when we discussed Nico Williams, 3 goals, 3 assists, his brother Iñaki Williams, 4 goals and 1 assist. So they've got exciting players in that side, and I think Valverde's got them playing really well again. Some disappointing results recently, obviously drawing against Sevilla. Sevilla have looked a little bit better since Lopetegui's gone. And then they obviously lost against Atletico Madrid last season, who are, dare I say, sort of sneaking up on the top teams at Atletico Madrid out of nowhere. But yeah, I mean, they're just much better than they were last season. And I think they've got a serious shot at Champions League football if they can maintain it, or certainly Europa League football this term. So I think Valverde will have something he wants to prove going back to Barcelona as well. Perhaps the last really consistent manager that they had. This one, it is because Barcelona are playing today. It's quite a short turnaround into another big game.
It's very true,
and they do have to go for it. I'm going to go for a 3-2 win for Barcelona. I'm going to go for the bonus. I'm going to go for the bonus point. I think it could just be quite exciting. It's Sunday evening, 8 p.m. I think that always adds a little bit something else to it. So I think it's going to be an exciting game. I'll go 3-2 to Barcelona, and if it's 3-1, then I'll kick myself.
Nice. Ernesto Valverde against his former club as well. It's going to be intriguing. I think this might finish. Did you go? What did you go?
I went 2-0 Barca.
2-0 Barca. You went 3-1. 3-2. Sorry. I kind of want to go for the draw for the points, but I actually do think Barcelona will win this. I will go just a 1-0 Barcelona win. Not particularly entertaining, but it's difficult when you go third and you have to predict a different scoreline. 1-0 to Barcelona.
It's worked all right for you so far, actually.
It has actually. Guys, get your predictions for those 3 games in the comments down below, and let's very quickly do a quickfire question. And this one comes in from New Age Purist, who says, who are your favourite Ligue 1 players? Henry, you're a big fan of Ligue 1.
I am, we haven't discussed it in great depth today, but I've got a soft spot for Moises Seaman at Nantes as well. I love Kamaldeen Sulemana, Rennes, and Amin Gouiri as well. I still think he's hugely underrated. Still stunned that he was transferred away from Nice this year. But I think that video of Seko Fofana signing that contract at Lens, it was just so poetic and nice. He could have moved away in the summer, but I think he just loves the club. And that's quite a special thing from time to time. He'll mean more to them and their history than he will do if he went to another big side and sort of filled in a gap there. So yeah, I think Seko Fofana and his all-action displays, he's one of my favourite players in Ligue 1 by a distance. I'm not going to mention a PSG player because no need.
Nice. Okay.
The Marseille team I've been a big fan of ever since last year, really. I mean, Payet's always been great, hasn't he? Is it Payet? He's the first player in Liga in history to score 100 and
goals,
100 assists, yeah,
really?
which is pretty mad. Like,
That's
I mean,
crazy.
Yeah, like I mean, he's a legend, isn't he? Yeah. Yeah, like we were saying earlier, Jonathan Klaus been really important to them as well. Alexis Sanchez and Nunes Tavares have done really well since they've been in there, but they only just arrived, so I wouldn't class them as established Ligue 1 players. Dango Ouattara at Lorient has been superb this season. 20 years old. We spoke about him last week, but he looks like a really exciting player. At least has been excellent so far this term. 4 goals, 4 assists for a very young Lorient side who are really making waves. So there's lots. There's just I feel like with Ligue 1, there's just like tons of players who are like 17, 18 years old, just absolutely smashing it. So it's cool to see. Yeah, it's cool to see kind of big output from such young players in a top 5 league. You don't really get that anywhere else, I don't think. Yeah,
absolutely. I like a few of the Monaco players. I've always really liked Alexander Golovin as well. I think he's technically he's really fun to watch. Really excellent on the ball. And I like Benoit Badiashile as well. He's an absolute unit at the back. And there's also this guy who plays for Toulouse, who I actually only saw earlier for the first time, but someone mentioning about him on Twitter. He's got the most crazy stats, and I haven't actually watched him. He's called something like Van der Brommen, and he has created one of the most amount of chances in the entirety of Europe this year. I think his stats in Ligue 2 last year for Toulouse were insane as well. Anyway, I'll read up on that guy. Let me know in the comments, how do you actually spell that guy's name? I think it's something like Van der Brommen, worth keeping an eye on. Anyway, not the most educated way to finish, but that is Continental Club for this week, guys. I hope you guys have enjoyed the show, our discussion about players your clubs can't live without, our big match predictions, and our little look at Ligue 1. If you enjoy that, maybe we'll do a Ligue 1 special at some stage. What's it called? The League of Talents or something like that. Anyway, Henry, I've been out of the loop this week, but what would you recommend people go and watch?
Oh yeah, we've got this Napoli Explained coming out on Sunday if you want to have more of a deep dive on that. And we did a lot of content last week looking at Mason Mount, how he's been changed by Graham Potter. Check that out on FD. So
nice. The Cubs.
I went blank. Go and check out Stat Wars. Yes. It was yourself against Patrick on the weekend. The league is in full flow. I'm currently editing Henry's game against Zach, which is a classic. That will be out on your screens tomorrow morning, so keep an eye out for that. But if you haven't already familiarised yourself with the new series of Stat Wars, get on it. Basically, if you've got like an hour to kill, you can get through like 5 or 6 episodes, and it's all good stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. I saw someone reply to one of Hamill's tweets the other day saying like, bring back Stat Wars, and he just replied, mate, it's been back for about 3 months. Anyway, go and watch it. As McCubb says, it was me versus Pat, and I was weirdly just in the zone on that particular occasion. Guys, thank you so much for watching. Have a great weekend, stay safe, and we'll see you next week. Bye.